Hey, hey, hey.
What you doing, Dr. Tiff? How's it going?
It's going good. Happy Tuesday.
Happy Tuesday to you.
Yes, we are back for another great Tuesday Talks episode. This one really hits near and dear to my heart because I feel like most of the topics we talk about, people who are watching or listening, they kind of are on our side. Like we all are in agreement with the topics and how we discuss them. This one, I feel like could cause a little split. Just
Hmm.
because it's a little bit controversial, I think. It's along the same lines as like, are you pro homework or, against homework? Like, what do you support? But tonight we are talking about grades. What do grades mean is our topic for tonight. And I think it's a good topic because you have people who are like, yes, kids need to have grades. They need to know how they did on a particular assignment. They need to know where they stand at the end of the 9 weeks. Your college level, where do you stand at the end of a semester? That generates our grade point average, which gets you into college. But I'm on the other side of that coin because I don't think that grades have the same authenticity and impact that they did in years past. And I'm a stop and I'm gonna ask you what your opinion is. I feel like I have the unpopular decision or opinion. I mean,
Well, I agree with you. Now, I don't know how our listeners are going to feel about it because being in education as a teacher, that's parents' like number one thing. Like as soon you have a wide range, a variety. So you got this spectrum who they don't see a grade until the end of almost the school year, and then they're like, "What happened?" And then you got the other end of the spectrum where you have people checking it like daily. And so if there's any 1 point increment of movement in the grade, if that point goes negatively, then there's an email or a phone call or some kind of contact being made to see what's going on. Um, I agree. And I've said before that grades, and it's been a frustration of mine as a teacher, grades do not have the same meaning. They are not, um, the integrity of a grade no longer really means this is what my child knows.
very true.
Yeah.
If you're watching us live, please share in the comments what you think. Are you team grades or are you team no grades? Like, where do you fall on the ends of these spectrums? I'm sure there's a middle ground, but I am anti-grading because I don't think, like you just said, it is an accurate reflection of what a child knows. It's a collection of data points that leads you to this average, right? But the same way that the GRE, when I took it, had absolutely no bearing on my knowledge base, I feel like in school, you are either teaching to the test for kids to pass. And so then do they really understand the material or are they just good at memorizing facts and spitting them out on grade day, on test day? Or are you altering grades, grading on a curve? I've always appreciated that. And again, you're altering the measuring system, right? So my son has always gone to a Montessori school. Now he goes to a school that puts in some Montessori concepts, but it's not a Montessori school. But he has never gotten a grade on any piece of schoolwork that he has done ever. The kid has never seen a B, or what have you at the top of his paper. He's never gotten a paper back or an assignment back with red ink. None of it. Um, and I know that he's learning. He's in fourth grade. He knows a lot more than when he started school. So I can see that he's learning, and I'm happy with that. Now, when people approach him like we're visiting family, and they're like, "How you doing in school? You got good grades?" He doesn't know the answer to that question because he doesn't get any grades.
He's looking at you like, Mom, what are they talking about?
So I'm interjecting like, yeah, he's doing really good in school. But they give observation narrative reports, they give progress reports with Likert scales, and it's not a perfect system. Just the same way that grading and traditional grading is not a perfect system. This isn't a perfect system either. But I find it to be, you know, less intimidating, I guess. Not that I don't ever want him to face, intimidation, but I want to see the product of what you know. You getting a good grade on a test means you're a good test taker, a good memorizer, or maybe you cheated. I don't know. So that's why I stand on the side of like grades don't really mean that much to me. I can see as a teacher with 30 something kids in a class, uh, that could be hard to manage if you're.
Giving narrative feedback. So there were a few years while I was teaching, because I could say I was teaching. So there were years, in all seriousness, where I realized and I just knew like these numerical assignments that we give to work in school were losing their meaning as I continued to go through. And so during those years, I was like, well, these kids need some feedback. Like they need some narrative feedback. So I created certain types of assignments, which put a whole lot of extra work on me. But I would commit to writing out like word feedback instead of just, like putting an X or fixing a number or something like that, real shorthand and real quick. And to be honest, the kids did a lot better, a lot faster with that narrative feedback. And that, I mean, it's no surprise because that's how we just kind of operate as people when we do something. So the sooner we get feedback and the more clear that feedback is for us, like the better we can adjust and the faster we'll get better. Our grades right now have fluff in them. I loathe participation grades. Benefited from them in school. Like, I need to answer 2 questions per day. Here's 1, here's 2, give me my 100. Like, I did what I had to do. But again, what does a participation grade really mean in the grand scheme of Algebra 1? You answer some questions in class. Were they right? Like, did you know what you were talking about? We don't know. It doesn't really reflect. It's not an accurate reflection of what the kids' knowledge really is, or their thinking, for that matter.
Yeah, I agree. I've even seen some posts online about changing the grading system. So we know traditionally, like 90 to 100 is an A, 80 to 89 is a B, so on and so forth. Changing it to where like the high 80s still correlates with the A. So like 87 to 100 is an A, and then 77 to like 86 would be a B. So changing the grading system. I've even seen, like you said, boosting grades up with participation grades, giving easy extra credit to boost up a grade, giving due date extensions on assignments so that you don't have a 0 that's pulling a grade. You can not.
I'm out here, girl. Like all of the loads. All these things.
So if that final grade on the report card is boosted by all of these little things, is it an accurate reflection of what your kid knows? And I would argue that it does not.
I have the same argument. I have to say, I got in trouble as a teacher for if I got in trouble as a teacher, it was these things that dealt with the grading system. Because I just believed your grade is going to be a more accurate reflection of what you know in my class. So your parents can understand if you have a B in my class, that means you are doing pretty well. You are pretty much on standard for where you're supposed to be. If you have an A, oh, that is like excellent. Like you are kind of above and beyond. If you have a C, you might want some tutoring because you are like right there on the edge of not, being successful, knowing what you need to know. And then, yeah, your F means you don't know squat. Like, I've, it's got to mean what it's set up to mean for me. And I've had to have a lot of conversations because typical A students that land in my class are the first ones to end up with C's at the beginning of my class. And that's because I don't do the fluff. I don't give a lot of credit. If I do give homework, I don't give a lot of credit towards the homework. They cheat. It is what it is. So I have to adjust things grade wise. I've been in a school system where they set formative and summative grades in such a way that the summative are like the big major tests, the unit tests, projects, in such a way that summative grades as a whole count less than formative grades as a whole, to the point where I had a school system that did 20% summative and 80% formative. And the formative grades are where a bunch of the fluff gets put in. I had major issues with that. Yeah, I'm over here like it's bringing back. I have embodied feelings about this stuff, and they're coming back up right now.
And I feel like one of the key points is for me is whether your child gets the traditional grade or non-traditional grade, it still requires you as a parent to be locked in and connected with school, because your kid keeps coming home with A's. I'm sure you have seen this yourself, especially me at the elementary school level. I have seen kids move on to the next grade, and I'm thinking, how did this happen? They are not ready for the next grade because I know what the standards are for the next grade. And they haven't even gotten the standards for the grade that we're just in. And so then what are their grades that justify them moving on to the next grade level? So, either way, you're going to have to be locked in to your kid's teacher, the way the school works, how grades are, arrived at. So there are a lot of pros to grades. We mentioned a couple of them. They're easy to understand. An A is an A. An A means you're doing good. An F means you're doing horrible. Okay, easy to understand. They offer a level of comparison. So when you have that scale, teachers can see how a student is performing compared to the rest of the class. And so you can make some judgments there. Am I grading too harshly? Do I need to make the next test more, I don't know, open-ended question versus essay? Maybe you make some adjustments based on how your students are doing on assignments or tests as well. And it also gives you like a standardization. And I think this is where most people see grades, the standardization that everywhere in this country, public schools have that A through F grading system. It's easy for people to see where a student stands academically. It's easy for parents to do a quick glance to see where their kids stand. And it gives you this quantifiable scale, which I mentioned earlier, translates to your grade point average, which is how you earn scholarships, which is how you earn admission to college. They're looking at your grade point average. If you have a 4.0, I have met a lot of high achieving students that lack real world problem solving skills. And I don't know how that is a good reflection of all of their years in school. Does that make sense?
Yeah, to me, it's not a good reflection. It is a reflection that something in the system is broken. When you have stories, multiple stories out there about valedictorians who can barely read, reading comprehension skills. How do you graduate from high school with, not up to par reading comprehension skills when that's how you have to get along in life? Like, that is definitely a part. Talk about real world application. Like, you have to read and understand what you read and then be able to do what it said to do in its basic form. And that's the English language. And then the math side of it, you have to be able to quantify things. You have to be able to think in numbers, or else how are you going to keep up with your money? How are you going to, if we take it up a level, to make sure that kids are able to self-sustain? How are you going to know how to invest so that you take care of your family? How are you going to know how to leave stuff for your family when you're no longer here? Like, all of that stuff is real life skills that is missing in the public education system that I've been in, that I've experienced personally, both as a student and as an educator. And I think it's sad. I really do.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I know I can't say that I see public schools or even some private schools for that matter transitioning to a non-traditional grading system. I think that would be a shock to every teacher, every administrator, every state education department, because, correct me if I'm wrong, but teachers are held to a minimum number of grades per grading period. In your experience, is that true?
Yeah.
So you have to collect a certain number of grades just at minimum throughout the school year. And tell me why this is a rule.
What I was told, because I just doesn't. I won't say it doesn't make sense. I get why they do it. What I was told was, if the grades that they're getting are not good, for example, then they have to have enough opportunities, i.e. more grades, to bring that grade up to where it needs to be. We grade on a 0 to 100 scale. And so statistically, like, that system, that scale is set up for kids to fail more than it is to succeed. Like, the point 0 through 69, that's how many points there are that are failing points, versus 70 to 100 passing points. So just statistics alone, you have a much greater chance of failing because there's so many more points available to fail with. And so the more grades you give, the less one grade will affect all the other ones. But that's only true if they are making better grades. Like,
I like the way you just broke down this 0 to 100 grading scale. I don't want to just gloss over that, because that was
okay.
some fine mathematics there you did now. So what she said was, there are more opportunities on that traditional grading scale, 0 to 100, more grades that will have you fail. 0 to 69 would be considered a not passing grade, versus 70 to 100. So you have 69 points, 69 chances of getting that grade. Or I'm sorry, 69, I'm losing my math.
Available points.
There we go, available points to fail a class or an assignment, and only 30 on the other end to pass and do really, really good. So I feel like that is very eye-opening, because it is really requiring kids on this traditional grading system to really have to achieve highly all the time. And now we've altered the system, telling teachers how many grade points, how many data points of grades they need throughout the semester in order to help keep it boosted up. That's so interesting to me. So again, what does the grade really mean? Does it mean that it's got all this fluff that we talked about earlier that's helping keep this grade up where it is, or is it a true testament of what they're learning? Um, my brother teaches middle school, and at his place of work, the teachers are told not to give grades lower than a specific number, even if the student earned a lower grade. So I believe the number he told me was like a 64, 65. Like, you can't give a grade lower than that, even if the kid achieved lower than that. So then we're teaching kids that the grades don't matter either, right?
Yeah. Yeah. My number has been in my places with an S, multiple places, has been a 60. And even within that, there's been like, so you can't give back an individual assignment with less than a 60 on it, or you can give them back whatever they make, but by the reporting period, by the report card, it can't be any lower than a 60, no matter what they've accumulated along the way. And so what it tends to do is allows kids to be less motivated. It gives them a false sense of, well, I can not even do the bare minimum, but less than the bare minimum, and my grade will stay here. So when it gets close to the end, I'll only have like a little bit that needs to be done, and now I'm passing and I'm good to go. And the danger in that is what we've already mentioned, Tiff. They don't know what they need to know to move on to the, so their grade says, oh yeah, they're good, and their mind says, I'm blank. What is a variable?
Yeah, and I think this is especially true for kids who receive special education services, because a lot of times their IEPs will have accommodations and modifications in it. So if the assignment is given one way to everybody in the class, if your child has accommodations or modifications in their IEP, like, read it out loud to them, give them extra time, reduce the number of choices in a multiple choice answer type test, allow them to be in a separate room while they're taking the test. And this isn't just for state tests. This is can be for any assessment, any assignment that they get in class. And so then if the grade on the top of the paper is interpreted by the parent as this great grade, but the educators know this child achieved the grade because they were given all these modifications and accommodations on the assignment, you would think like, okay, well, the parents on the IEP, they know what modifications and accommodations their kid is getting. Sometimes these IEPs can be like 20 pages long. So it's only so much that a person can store in their memory. And when you see a grade on the paper, you think, okay, my kid did good. Nobody read the test to them. They did good. Why would anybody read the test to them unless I am really locked into my kid's IEP and know, the ins and outs of it. Most parents, in my experience, they don't really remember all those things from their kid's IEP. So you might look at an assignment and think that your kid has done really good. So if your child receives special education services and have any kind of accommodations on their IEP, really take a second look at that grade to see what it actually represents. Because in most cases, it is not. It's a testament of their skills given the specified accommodations in their IEP. And they may or may not have those throughout the life of their IEP. It really just depends. And you can have those same accommodations in college, but there's no guarantee. So as a parent, I would want to know what my kid can actually do versus what he can do when he's given these additional accommodations, because it does make a difference.
That's so good. I'm glad you said that for the parents, because behind the curtain, I have witnessed that when those kids go to those small groups, not just like you said for state testing, but just for any assignment or any regular grade, oftentimes, and I hate to say it, but we're on Tuesday Talks. So oftentimes those kids are getting answers. Like those kids are, it's not even their knowledge that's going on the test or their words that are being written for their essays or their short answer questions. Like the help that they're getting, what it's become, which is again sad, is we're just going to do whatever we got to do, adults, for this kid to push them along and get them graduated and get them out of the school system. And that's not helping the kids, and it's definitely not helping our society.
No, not at all. Because, like you said, it buffers their motivation. Like, well, I can just give half the effort and get, a full grade. Why do I need to give full effort? I mean, there are even things in my own life. I'm like, well, if I could just do it like 80%, it's good enough to know, get past it. So if we're teaching kids that at a younger age, how will they develop that stronger work ethic as they grow into adults? So I don't personally, I don't see our public school system changing the grading system, but there are, I think, some good alternatives to the traditional grading system for teachers. I think you can set up, different class activities that are collaborative. They're either collaborative projects, assignments where they are given a problem, whether it's a math problem or something that's connected to language arts, some type of investigation or something where they need to inference, make predictions, get an outcome, some type of collaborative project where they are working together, still aligned with the good old pacing guide that we've talked about many times on here, and then also with the state standards too, so that they're talking, they're problem solving, they are in agreement with their peers, or they are trying to, really articulate their point to show why another peer's answer could not be the best answer. That is what we need our kids to have a good grasp on, not filling in bubbles on an assessment, selecting their multiple choice answer.
Yeah, I love those. I think to add to that, other alternative ways that we can assess, which I like assessing versus grading. Grading makes me think of like meat in the grocery store. Like, but one other thing that helps with that is like trying to get the kids to be intrinsically motivated to learn. Like what I've seen from my own children and from looking at others, kids who are young love to learn. Like that is something that I found is innately in them. And it's the way that we pile on and put them through the system that causes them to not want to anymore, in my opinion. So finding ways to help them want to learn just for learning's sake, to get back to how they originally are created. Instead of trying to constantly motivate them with all this external stuff, like the string in the cupcake is the same I keep going back to because kids don't like carrots. You're trying to dangle something. If you do this, then I'm going to give you this. That devalues what you get out of learning something for yourself. And I am a proponent of allow kids to explore, allow them to make mistakes, give them feedback, like we've been saying, and let them do it again, but don't keep doing it for them, and don't keep promising them gifts and trinkets and candy and things just because they put in work. That's not how it works in the real world. Like that's how we get adults who can't stand the job that they're in because their only motivation for doing the work in the job is the check that they're going to get. And that's it. And that's not a fulfilling life.
No, not at all. I think another way to have an alternative to traditional grading systems, whether it's as a whole or just specific subject areas, or maybe just specific assignments within a subject area, giving students the opportunity to self-assess, share how they think they're doing, and express areas where they may need help. So at my son's school, he is required to send an email They all have their own laptop. So sends an email to his teacher, and then I'm CC'd on the email, and it is a self-assessment. It's not, a Google form where he has to check off boxes. It's him typing out sentences to say, these are areas where I think I'm doing really good. These are areas where I think I'm struggling. And this is how I think I can make it better for the next marking period. So to me, the first time I got the email was pretty insightful. He said, I could do better. I'm doing really good with getting my work done each day. He said, but I could do better with not getting distracted. And going forward, I'm going to do more work with just one classmate or by myself instead of in groups with my friends, because that's how I'm getting distracted. That's him looking at himself and seeing the situation and then problem solving. What can I do to make this better going forward? And so then we get to see, okay, at the end of the next session, so how'd it go? Did you do what you said you were going to do? These are your own words. So I think that self-assessment piece is pretty unique to his school, and I think it gives some valuable information too.
Sorry, I love it. My bad. I'm just thinking about like all the how good that is. Just like real quick to go into it. It's, yes, self-assessment is great, but I don't want people to miss that the act of self-assessing and then coming up with possible solutions is how you make it in life. Like that is it. As adults on a day, this adulting that we're talking about, that is the essence of adulting. We have a problem, we brainstorm to find some solutions, we try one, it doesn't work, we try another one. And the people who are not able to do that honestly tend to lean towards having mental issues, having getting depressed, and they tend to go down that road. And we want to set our kids up for success. So I love that your school does that.
Yeah. So think about how your kids' grades reflect what they're actually able to do. And if things don't line up, I've shared on here before how my son's progress report did not line up. I was like, what you said on here is not accurate. Let's have a discussion. If your kid is doing traditional grading system, I encourage you to have those same conversations. Hey, my kid has an A in reading, but at home, I'm noticing that he is not reading that great. Can you show me what he should be reading at this level so I can compare it to what I see at home? Because I must be seeing something different at home. It requires a conversation. So either way, the traditional or the non-traditional grading systems require that conversation and that check-in and connection. That's what it's all about. So thank you, everybody, for joining us. Be sure to check us out on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Share this episode with friends or colleagues. Chime in the comments. We even read them after the episode has aired. So make sure you share your input with us and share our episode with a friend or colleague. And with that, we'll see you next week for another Tuesday Talk.
Bye.